Hello everyone, this is Muhammad Tuhami, author of Midway Simplicity, and welcome to a new episode of the Midway Decluttering Show where you will find practical tips to help you declutter your first 100 items. And today I have a very special guests. They are the super amazing couple, Warren and Betsy Talbot from marriedwithluggage.com. They are the authors of 3 very interesting books, including Getting Rid of It, Eliminate Declutter from Your Life. It's a book that will free you from the junk that doesn't serve you anymore. And my favorite book, which is Dream, Save, Do, is a book that shows you how to flesh out your dreams and the financial and social tools needed to make them happen. Warren, Betsy, welcome to the Midway Decluttering Show.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here.
Awesome. So let's start by the story. How did you start your journey with decluttering, pursuing your dreams, and saving for them, and actually making them happen?
Well, it began back in 2006, I believe, when we decided to move to Seattle. We were in a large home, a 3,000 square foot home, and needed to move down to a home that was a third the size of that. And so we had to get rid of over half of our things. So that was a forced process.
It actually was self-forced, though, because we decided that house was too big. It was complicating our lives. We weren't able to spend time with each other. There was so much maintenance involved. And we made the conscious decision to downsize.
So we started getting rid of things, and that kind of got the ball rolling, just because we were moving into a smaller space for a life we wanted. Once we got to Seattle and we were there for a couple of years, her brother had a heart attack at 35, and then a friend of ours had a brain aneurysm at 34, and that kind of shook us to the core and caused us to change and make some big decisions about what was most important in our lives.
What direction did we want our life to go, and how long were we going to delay doing the things that we really, really wanted to do? And that thing we really, really wanted to do was travel around the world.
So the next morning after the decision, we started the process, and I literally started identifying things we were going to get rid of that day. And so that was the big process, was just how to get rid of things. And so we put a date out there of when we would leave. We put a target for our revenue, and then we started the process for creating the life we wanted.
Super. And what was the first thing that you started to declutter? And what are the biggest challenge that you faced after that?
Well, first of all, I think I'm the only one who faced any challenges, because he loves getting rid of stuff. I don't. I do not like getting rid of things. So when we first started, he had to treat me almost like a baby. And we started getting rid of things that we had absolutely no use for, no love for, just kind of really like garage type items that you don't ever use. I think those were the first things, because he knew that I wouldn't throw a fit.
Yeah, there were things that weren't really that important to her, or she may not, I don't even know if she knew they existed, frankly, half the things. So I would go through and spend a lot of time in the garage, because it was a place that we could make progress without impacting her, and let her start getting more and more comfortable with it. And so we started getting rid of things, just things laying around, tools, things that I knew we weren't going to need for a while, and then started in on books. That was the next big project. But it was books we had both already read, and they were just sitting on a shelf, because you hate to get rid of books. You know, they for some reason they hold an affinity for us all.
But I think one of the things that we did that made it easier for me is that we knew that the places our things were going were good. So we sold our books to a parent who homeschools in the United States, so a parent who teaches his kids at home. He bought our entire collection of books. And so you think, oh, wow, our books are going to help educate some little kid, and that makes me feel better than selling them at a yard sale or giving them back to a bookstore.
Right. And the next project was the kitchen. There are so many things in our kitchens that we just don't use. We have them because because we've just always had them, but we may not use them. So we started a project where we would take all of our kitchen utensils and stick them in a box. And if we needed to use one, we would reach in and pull it out of the box and then put it back in the drawer. Everything that we didn't use within, I think, a month,
we got rid of.
And so that's how we began the process with the kitchen. So again, it was taking every room in the house, and including the closets, and taking things that we weren't using actively and getting rid of those first, So that made it an easier step.
I think mentally, if you're like me and you have trouble getting rid of things, you have to do it that way to kind of ease yourself into the process.
Yeah.
I just want to stress on something here that you mentioned at the beginning, that you started the decluttering process to support kind of the dream of traveling.
Correct.
So,
Right.
so decluttering in itself is not the simple living, purpose, or it's not the why of simple living. You are not simplifying to declutter. You are decluttering to do something else to allow yourself to pursue a bigger dream. Can you give us some more insight on that concept?
Absolutely.
When your life is covered up with stuff, and when you are spending all of your time maintaining things, even things you love, there is a cost to it. There's a cost to it financially, physically, logistically, but there's also an opportunity cost, and that means that you are not able to go after certain things in your life if you have too much stuff. And that's physical stuff and also stuff in your head. You have to streamline all of those things if you want to be able to appreciate the opportunities in front of you and to go after them. There's no way that we could be living the life that we live, traveling around the world, if I had to worry about a full house full of things, all of those things that we left behind. You have to make a choice in your life as to what is most important. And most important to me is not a room full of stuff. Most important to me is a life full of experience.
Yeah, and I think that there's another side to that, which is once you start getting rid of it, so even if you don't have the specific dream in mind, once you start getting rid of things, opportunities arise.
Absolutely.
And it's just because you're freeing yourself, and we had a guy several years ago that told us that your life kind of begins at the moment you let all the balls go. And for us, those balls were a large amount of things in our home that were just keeping us back for whatever reason. And once we started letting things go, new opportunities arose. New people invited us out to dinner. People would give us new opportunities and invite us into their homes in their home countries when we got on the road. And it was amazing how it happened, but it kept happening. And we've now seen it through the course of other people going through the same process.
There's also a creative pursuit in there. Since we've left, we've written 3 books, and we had plenty of time in our lives before that we could have written a book, and we didn't. And it's that mental clarity that comes with not having to maintain all of that stuff that frees you up to do things, not just experiences, but things in your own mind, creative pursuits that you might have, to write a book, to paint a picture, to become a photographer. Any of those things, I think those get weighted down when you have too much stuff.
Yeah, that's very true. Now let's move into some of the challenges that people face when they start the decluttering process. The first of them is I'm overwhelmed by the too much stuff that I own. I don't know where to begin, or I don't think doing it in small pieces at a time, will not be of much significance to compared to the pile of stuff that I own. So it doesn't matter how much I work on decluttering, it seems that I'm doing nothing.
Well, it's, I can understand that approach, but the truth is that you have to start small. It is too big a project. We had 2 years to get rid of everything we owned.
Yes.
And so, but 2 years seems like a long time, but when you're doing it, you have to do it in stages for 2 reasons. One, just the pure logistics of going through it. It takes time to touch every object and figure out where it needs to go. Mm-hmm. The second thing is the emotional. So I'll talk about the logistical side and let Betsy talk about the emotional. But from a logistical side, pick one room in the house. Even if it's, and if that room is really cluttered, pick just the closet and make that a weekend project. And dedicate yourself that you will begin and end that decluttering project in that time period. Don't worry about the enormity of the rest of your home or even the rest of the room. Give yourself a task and an effort that you can accomplish within a weekend. Do that, feel comfortable, and celebrate it for the whole week. Don't do anything else. Just 1 week, just enjoy what you've done and go back to that closet as much as possible. The next weekend, pick another closet in the home, or even better, pick a bookshelf. Just one bookshelf and just clear out everything. If you can get rid of half of the things on that bookshelf, you've made progress. But again, it's steps, and you have to logistically do each one. But a tip for everyone is, if you touch something, if you pick it up and put it in your hand, determine what you're going to do with it. Ask yourself the last time you used it, and if it was not within the last 6 months, put it in the pile to get rid of. Now, and that's a whole nother conversation about how to get rid of things, but put it in that pile to get rid of, and don't remove it from that pile.
I think for me, the big thing is to halt the spread immediately. So don't think about getting rid of everything right away. Think about halting the spread. And the way you do that is a ratio. If you bring one thing into your house, you have to take one thing out of your house. This will keep you on an even keel where you're at right now. So if you bring in a t-shirt, another t-shirt leaves. The other thing is the small daily steps. You said that your readers felt like they weren't going to make progress, you know, the little bit that they could do every day. But everything that we teach, whether it comes from decluttering or going after your dreams or saving money, any of those things, it all relies on a small everyday step. Giant leaps are not going to get you where you want to go. Everyone thinks that it's a giant leap, but it's not. It's every single day. So if you can devote 15 minutes a day to clean out a drawer, to clean out a bookcase, over time, that is going to make a huge impact. And if at the same time you are limiting what you bring in by taking things out at the same time, then you're going to be well on your way to, I call it passively decluttering your home. It's not really passive, but it's about the easiest way you can do. But even today, we live by the rule that if we bring something in, something goes out. I mean, and we live with 2 backpacks.
Wow, that's very interesting. Now, if someone lacks organizational skills, so yes, he do the decluttering work, but since he lacks organizational skills, things seem to be scattered everywhere. So how to solve that?
In my way of thinking, it's function-based. So all the things that go with this function go here. All the things that go with this function go here.
Like what?
So for instance, if you like to knit, all of your knitting supplies go in one place.
Right.
If you work on your computer, all of your computer stuff goes in one place.
Right. Yeah, I think there's a misconception that decluttered means organized.
Right.
And I think that you have to forgive yourself that and accept the fact that you may not be an organized person.
That's okay.
That's okay. But if you have half of the possessions in a year that you have today, your life will be better and you will be more free, and the opportunities will arise because the things may be scattered all over your home, but there are fewer of them. So you don't have to worry so much about how to find things and how to search for them. But I don't think that you need to worry or be stressed about being organized at all.
No.
It is something that you can improve on over time by just dedicating spaces in your home. Dedicate a bookshelf to just books. Don't put any knickknacks on there. Don't do anything else. Just put books. But if those books are in all different array of sizes and shapes, which drives me crazy.
Doesn't drive me crazy at all.
Drives me nuts. It gives me, it makes me itch. But if that's your way and you're comfortable with it, then embrace it. That's who you are at your core. As long as you don't live with someone who is exact opposite of you, then you're okay.
Okay, so the next one is, what if I'm too exhausted and by the end of the day, for example, I have too many tasks to do and people or kids to take care of that I cannot find time to implement the decluttering tips or do the decluttering work?
Part of the reason that people are exhausted is the maintenance of their stuff. I mean, think about how tired you are when you come home from a long day of work or school or whatever you're doing, and you are just surrounded by all this junk, and it makes you sad and it makes you tired and exhausted.
Right. So it's actually perpetuating the problem.
Yes.
So I think that what Betsy said earlier is a great example. 15 minutes a day. Right? We're not talking about a lot of time. So if you can't dedicate an entire weekend to the project, dedicate 15 minutes every day that's what you're going to do. No more. Right? That progress will add up because over the course of a month, you will be shocked at how many things you can accomplish. You can get all of your closets, all of your drawers, and all of your bookshelves completely cleared out. Now what's left is cabinets and shelves that may be in other rooms. But take that progress and know that you're making it, but just dedicate 15 minutes. But make sure you don't dedicate more, right? Give your family all the time that they deserve, because that's obviously most important.
But one thing that I will point out in terms of family, if you are lucky enough to have children to help you, I think this is a great thing to teach your children, because I grew up with, I wouldn't say that my mom is not a hoarder or anything like that. My mom is actually very neat, but she has a lot of stuff. And I grew up thinking that that was normal, that it's normal to have 12 bottles of shampoo at a time in your house. And so I think if you teach your children early on that it's okay to go through your toys and donate the ones you don't play with anymore to other children to play with. Yeah. Those are great lessons for them. It helps you, and it helps them to be more simplistic themselves.
Yeah.
Using your kids as a second hand.
Oh, no. Yeah. Teaching our kids.
We think they may be the same.
Awesome. And you know, how to stay focused. You know, as you said, the decluttering process can take up to 2 years to see the end result. So how to stay focused over such a long period of time?
Well, we have a reader right now that's going through the process, and she emails us as an example every week what she does. And how she stays motivated is she celebrates every success. Right, so she goes through and she cleans out her garage and she takes pictures of it, and she really enjoys it. She shares it with all her friends on Facebook. Right? That process gives her excitement, makes her happy. Now what she sees is the possibilities of what decluttering can buy her. By celebrating each individual success, even if you just clear out a drawer, celebrate that and realize how good it feels and how easy it is to find your things. Now suddenly you start creating momentum. And I think you've got to internalize that.
There's also a financial incentive. So if you live in an area where they have Craigslist, or I think it's Gumtree in the UK, or eBay, or any of those kinds of places where you can sell your things online, when you start seeing cash for your junk, it can be very motivating. And you think, wow, I didn't really like that bread machine that much, but hey, the $20 I got for it, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
and
so
when you
turn
start,
it into a financial goal.
You start turning it into a bit of a financial goal. But in the bigger scheme of things, what kept us motivated is that we were decluttering for a purpose. Now, you may not want to sell everything you own and travel around the world, but you could plan for a big party in the summertime and know that you want to have your house done by then. You could plan for a certain date, like when your kids start school, or something like that. If you have something in mind to keep you motivated, that you're going towards that, I always think a party is a great idea, but something like that to keep you motivated.
Keep you on track.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
That's very interesting tips.
Now, if I'm living in a cluttered and consumer-based environment, and I'm facing resistance from family and friends, or maybe my spouse, like your case somehow. So how to face that resistance, and how to convince them with what I'm doing, maybe persuade them to follow my path as well. So
yeah,
I think that the easiest way to do that is by example. You can't change other people, and you actually can't expect them to follow your path. It's an individual decision, and you can only go your own way. And as people see you having more experiences, having money to travel, having the freedom to do things that they can't do, they will start coming around. But you can't say, this is what I'm doing now, and you must do it too. People are very resistant to change. I think there's also a bit of judgment involved. People think that because you're changing, that you're making a judgment on their lifestyle.
And by people, you mean the people outside the home, not your spouse.
Right. That you're making a judgment against them, and you're not. But that's kind of how that feels. It's like when your friend loses weight and you don't want to lose weight, and you feel kind of mad that they're losing weight.
Yeah, I think that's the people outside, your friends and your family, the first group that you talked about. I think that you have to do it for yourself, right? And they may not understand, but you have to just explain to them once why you're doing it, but realize that it's still right for you. and take that to heart and be very confident that you know why you're doing it. It is because you want to go on a trip, because you want to make more money, because you just want to free up more space in your life. You're doing it for you. The second part of the conversation is about a spouse. So your spouse, your mate, doesn't agree with you or align with you. I think you have to sit down and have a conversation about why you personally are doing it.
Because otherwise people think of it as sacrifice and that something is being taken away from them. If you explain the positive rather than we need to be simple, we need to simplify, talk about what you're getting in return, that is much more persuasive than what you have to give up.
Yeah, like with anything in a relationship, you have to talk about it first and agree on what it is. And it's much easier if you can agree on a common goal of why you're doing it. So we were doing it to travel around the world, but I can tell you that still wasn't easy.
No.
You know, it's still hard. So you have to constantly be talking about it, and you have to be aware of the emotional impact that it's taking. And, you know, for me, I would have gotten rid of everything within a month. It would have been, you know, just hardcore, let's go. But we needed to go slow. So that's where the conversation came in, is I knew that she was ready to do it, but not ready to get rid of everything.
Right.
So we slowly went, and we had conversations all along the way. And at the end, we reached our mutual goal, not my goal.
Right. It has to be a mutual goal for you to be successful.
Yes.
Yeah. Talking about emotional impact, let's talk about decluttering sentimental items. Like items that are associated with good memories, items that are precious and valuable, expensive, items that we received as valuable gifts from people we care about. But all this stuff we no longer need, but we are attached to them emotionally somehow.
Right.
Well, this is a lesson that I had to learn because I had a lot of sentimental value placed on things. And I had to finally realize that the value that I had for them were for the people that gave them to me, not for the item. So we make the mistake of putting our love and affection for the person who gave it to us or for the memory associated with it onto the item. If you get rid of that item, you will not forget that person. You will not forget that event. You can even take a picture of it. That's what we did with everything, was take a picture. But I think you have to learn to separate that. Now, if it's something that you love and it's beautiful and are useful, that's fine. But if it no longer serves your life, you have to realize what that thing meant to you, what the memory did, and separate that from the article.
Yeah. And make sure that if you're in a relationship, you have to make sure that both of you agree to that. If you get rid of something, so if I was to get rid of an item of clothing of hers, I don't know why I would ever do that. But if I was to do that and it had sentimental value, that's going to create tension between us. And I don't think that's fair. So you have to make sure that both of you are ready to get rid of the item. If it's valuable, that's an easy problem. There's always someone willing to buy your stuff. You know, around the world, someone is interested in paying you money to take things away from your house. So that's a much easier problem than dealing with the emotional side.
One thing that we did when we were getting ready for our big journey, I had a lot of personal items, silk scarves, purses, you know, nicer clothes, things like that I really didn't want to part with. They had memories for me from our travels, from other things. And so my birthday was coming up, my 39th birthday, and so I took 39 of these things that I felt like I couldn't easily part with, and I had a reverse birthday party. I invited my friends over, and I put little tags on each item describing why I loved it so much and the memory behind it. And if my friends wanted that item, they just wrote their name on the back of the tag, and then they just put a little, instead of buying me a gift, they put a little donation for our trip fund. And the night was great. If more than one person put their name on the back of the item, we made them do a little style show. So it was great. And it was a warm, memorable way to get rid of my things and to know they were going to people that I loved.
Wow, that's a great idea. Wow. It's awesome. So what do you do with the popular what if dilemma? What if I will need this in the future? What if, you know?
Well, that's where projects like putting them in a box and seeing how often you use them, you truly use them. Those types of scenarios are excellent ways of dealing with it. What we found is that the number of times we needed something in the kitchen, for example, that we had gotten rid of was maybe twice. And the best thing about the what ifs, you don't use them very often, and all your neighbors probably own those things. So you can always borrow it for one occasion. So you have one big giant pot that you use to cook stew once a year. You can borrow one from the neighbor.
That's actually a lost art. That's something that I think people don't realize. If you want to borrow a giant umbrella to go to the beach once a year when your friends come to visit, you can borrow one. You don't have to buy one.
Right. Yeah, there are lots of options available to you. And the what if scenario rarely happens, and that's why you take advantage of the 1 month rule. If it's something that you don't know if you're going to need, stick it in a box. If you haven't used it for a month, tape up the box and send it away.
Yeah.
And what about the items that may be associated with a future dream? Like I will keep my guitar, for example, because I have a dream in the future to play guitar. So, and it never happens. This dream has been there for years, for example, and it never happens. So, or a future sport or something like that,
That's a great question. I think that the first step is when you pick up that guitar, set a date for when you're going to start lessons. And if you haven't started lessons by that date, get rid of the guitar and put the pressure upon yourself.
Right.
It's your dream. It's the thing that's most important to you. And a dream without a deadline is dead. It will never happen. Right. We talk about this extensively in Dream, Save, Do. You've got to put a date on that dream. It is so important to you that you need to make it happen. And you already own the instrument. So pick it up, call around, make the process, and begin the steps to make your dream happen.
And if you're not going to do that, your guitar should go to somebody who will. When you talk about what if I need it someday, or what if you're not using it, someone else needs it, and you should get rid of it. Yeah.
So if you do have an extra guitar, Betsy wants to start guitar lessons. We'll give you her address in Mexico. You can send it down. It'll be a perfect fit.
Awesome. And do you have a list of, like a checklist or a series of questions that you ask yourself to help you decide upon what you should keep and what you should get rid of?
We have a list. We actually wrote extensively about our process in our book, Getting Rid of It. And so there are a number of questions listed in there and a number of checklists that we used ourselves. So we've absolutely used a number of steps and a number of processes we go through.
But I think the easiest question to ask yourself is it beautiful or useful?
That's
if it's something beautiful
simple,
that you treasure and you want to keep, that's one thing.
Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah. And if it's something useful that you actually use on a regular basis, those are the two key indicators for me.
I'm a list guy. I like lists.
I like to make it simple. I like to make it very simple.
I like that one as well. So, do you have like, one of your or a couple of favorite decluttering methods that are not too time consuming?
Well, mine, I've already told you about the one thing in, one thing out kind of a thing. You can speed that up by saying one thing in and two things out. That's a really easy process. You bring one thing home, you get rid of two similar items.
Yeah. Again, I'm going to selfish plug, but our book, Getting Rid of It, we have a number of tips in there, but one that we outline is the idea of how to clean out your closet. So you take all your clothes and you reverse the hangers. So you basically take that, how you normally put your hanger in into a closet. You turn it around and put it backwards. And so you wait after, I think, a month, anything that you haven't used. So when you use an item, you pull it out and you put it back in.
You hang it on properly.
You hang it on properly. At the end of a month, anything that's not turned around, those are items that you should probably look at getting rid of.
Well, and you can set your own timeline. You want the whole season or whatever, but it's amazing to see that in person because you think you wear all of your clothes and you really only wear about 20% of your clothes.
Yeah, that's statistically that we found that data out. And so what happens is this is an easy tip anyone can do. So just go into your closet, take all your clothes and turn your hangers around and start living your life to where you have to consciously reach in and figure out if you're going to use that or not. Set a time frame and then get rid of everything that's left. And, those jeans that you had 10 years ago that you haven't been able to fit into for a while, it may be time to get rid of them. Embrace who
Super.
you are.
Yeah.
Well, and
Yeah.
like I tell everyone, if you really do lose 20 pounds or 10 kilos or whatever, you're probably going to want to go out and buy a new pair of jeans anyway.
And celebrate, yeah.
Not the ones you had 10 or 15 years ago.
Exactly.
Well, at least to celebrate the achievement.
Yes.
That's right. With all the new money you're making as well. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you very, very much, Betsy and Warren, for this amazing episode and the awesome tips that you shared with us. And would you like to leave us with something that's, you know, your favorite quote, words of wisdom, something inspiring that you would like to leave for our viewers?
Scheming and dreaming will only fill your mind. Taking action will fill your life.
Wow. 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 That's powerful. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I hope to have you again on another show very soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you. Bye. Tools needed to make them happen. Warren, Betsy, welcome to the Midway Decluttering Show.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
for
It's
having
wonderful
us.
to be here.
Awesome. So let's start by the story. How did you start your journey with decluttering, pursuing your dreams, and saving for them, and go actually making them happen?
Well, it began back in 2006, I believe, when we decided to move to Seattle. We were in a large home, a 3,000 square foot home, and needed to move down to a home that was a third the size of that. And so we had to get rid of over half of our things. So that was a forced process.
It actually was self-forced, though, because we decided that house was too big. It was complicating our lives. We weren't able to spend time with each other. There was so much maintenance involved. And I
didn't even know if she knew they existed, frankly, half the things. So I would go through and spend a lot of time in the garage because it was a place that we could make progress without impacting her and let her start getting more and more comfortable with it. And so we started getting rid of things laying around, tools, things that I knew we weren't going to need for a while. And then started in on books. That was the next big project. But it was books we had both already read.
Yes.
And they were just sitting on a shelf because you hate to get rid of books. You know, they for some reason, they hold an affinity for us all.
But I think one of the things that we did that made it easier for me is that we knew that the places our things were going were good. So we sold our books to a parent who homeschools in the United States. So a parent who teaches his kids at home. He bought our entire collection of books. And so you think, oh.
Hello everyone, this is Muhammad Tuhami, author of Midway Simplicity, and welcome to a new episode of the Midway Decluttering Show, where you will find practical tips to help you declutter your first 100 items. And today I have a very special guest. They are the super amazing couple, Warren and Betsy Talbot from MattedWithLuggage.com. They are the authors of 3 very interesting books, including Getting Rid of It, Eliminate Declutter from Your Life. It's a book that will free you from the junk that doesn't serve you anymore. And my favorite book, which is Dream, Save, Do, is a book that shows you how to flesh out your dreams and the financial and social.
We would leave. We put a target for our revenue. And then we started the process for creating the life we wanted.
Super. And what was the first thing that you started to declutter? And what are the biggest challenge that you faced after that?
Well, first of all, I think I'm the only one who faced any challenges because he loves getting rid of stuff. I don't. I do not like getting rid of things. So when we first started, he had to treat me almost like a baby. And we started getting rid of things that we had absolutely no use for, no love for, just kind of really like garage type items that you don't ever use.
Right.
I think those were the first things because he knew that I wouldn't throw a fit.
Yeah, there were things that weren't really that important to her. Or she
made the conscious decision to downsize.
So we started getting rid of things, and that kind of got the ball rolling, just because we were moving into a smaller space for a life we wanted. Once we got to Seattle and we were there for a couple of years, her brother had a heart attack at 35. And then a friend of ours had a brain aneurysm at 34. And that kind of shook us to the core and caused us to change and make some big decisions about what was most important in our lives.
What direction did we want our life to go, and how long were we going to delay doing the things that we really, really wanted to do? And that thing we really, really wanted to do was travel around the world.
So the next morning after the decision, we started the process, and I literally started identifying things we were going to get rid of that day. And so that was the big process, was just how to get rid of things. And so we put a date out there when we